Let's learn Parshat Bo in Exodus with our commentator of the year, Rashi's commentary. And let's focus in on a very famous verse about the Passover story in chapter 12 of Exodus, verse 13. It's in this verse that the Israelites get the mitzvah to put blood on their doors. And it's because of that blood, says the Torah, that God is going to skip over them when it comes to the plague of the firstborn, the judgments on Egypt. Ufasachtem alechem, and God will skip over you. And without going into too much depth about the meaning of the verb and the word Pesach, this is, of course, where we get the name of the Passover holiday from in Hebrew, Pesach, ufasachti alechem. I will pass over you. I will see that blood on your doors is the general way it's understood, and I'll go on to the next house where, unfortunately, I have to make good on my word and make this plague in Egypt come true. But Rashi has a little bit of a different way of reading this very famous verse about the blood on the doors, and it's worth our reflecting on it. And before I read you the verse and learn the Rashi with you, let me just remind you that some people have a minhag on Seder night, on the Seders, or at the Seders, to drink red wine. And to use red wine because they need a symbol on their Seder table of the blood that was on the doors. The blood that was painted on the doors needs symbolic representation in terms of some people set up for the Pesach Seder, and so they only use red wine for their Pesach Seder. Just keep that in mind as we learn out this verse and this Rashi, because it links up nicely. So verse 13 of chapter 12 of Exodus says, V'haya hadam lachem la'ot al habatim asher atem sham v'ra'iti et hadam ufasachti alechem v'lo yihye v'chem negef l'mashchit v'hakotzi v'eretz Mitzrayim. The blood will be a sign for you upon the houses where you are, and I will see the blood, and I will skip over your houses. There will not be a plague among you to destroy when I am destroying and striking in the land of Egypt. Rashi is going to note something about the verbiage in this verse of the Torah. The question is, what is this word lachem doing in the verse? The verse could have read, V'haya hadam la'ot al habatim. The blood was a sign or will be a sign on the doors. But insert the word lachem, lamed chaf mem. So with the fact that we have the insertion, Rashi explains the following. Lachem la'ot, it will be for you a sign, velo la'acherim la'ot, and not for others, but for you. Now Rashi's bringing a Mechilta Midrash, by the way, and doesn't start us off by saying our sages explain. He seems to be offering this explanation as if it were his own, but whether Rashi says our sages explained, or there's a Midrash, or he brings commentary, just on a technical level, sometimes Rashi is quoting the Midrash, and we need to be cognizant of the fact that this is a much older tradition than just a Rashi tradition in the Middle Ages. Most of the time, Rashi will be bringing Midrashic traditions in order to fill in the narrative, create idiomatic modes of reading a narrative, or adding dimensionality, as here. So he says, the ot, it'll be a sign, lachem, for you, v'lo la'acherim, and not for others. Mikan, and if it's for you, and from this fact, mikan Shelo natnu hadam ela mibifnim. Surprisingly, Rashi explains, and the Mechilta said, from here we can see that the blood was actually put on the inside of the doorposts and not on the outside. I think for many people that's a little surprising, that if we thought about painting the blood on the doorposts in order for the angel of death to see it and God should pass over, the angels should pass over their homes, that we think about it on the outside, like a mezuzah stands on the outside. But in fact, what's essential here is that the Jewish people has the very symbol of life, blood, painted on the inside of the doors. And that this blood becomes a sign directed inward. And that it's through understanding the symbol of blood, the life force that flows within us, that we're blessed with, that God grants us, that it's your blood, God is saving, that it's our blood, God is redeeming, it's our lives that God is redeeming. And through the harsh punishments in Egypt, there's mercy. Because when we see the blood, the red blood staring at us, our hearts are truly stirred. Our mercies are stirred. A human being seeing blood wants for mercy, begs for mercy. And in this way, God tempers the punishments of the Egyptians, though it is just at that time in history, and though it must be as God ordains, Jewish people be reminded, your blood is being redeemed. Blood is being spilled. And we must move forward towards a more merciful and compassionate society. And so this symbol indoors connects Jews to our values and our hopes for life. And how important each and every soul is. No one's blood being redder than anyone else's. So the power of the symbol indoors has quite a message for Jews throughout every generation as well. And that is, our homes must be filled with sacred symbols. The Passover Seder itself teaches us that. Fill your tables and fill your homes with the sacred symbols that remind you of history, God's presence, and the values that we cherish. And since we, each of us, have that life force within us, that flowing blood that God granted us and gifted us, we are consistently reminded of how powerful life can be and what meaning freedom can have if we are to be the ones to protect each and every soul, each and every blood brother and sister that we have in this world. So huddled in the house, the Jews recognize that, of course, the Egyptians will suffer that night, maybe not having appreciated so deeply the blood of their brothers and sisters. And as God is merciful and skips over their homes that night in order to redeem them, the internal symbols reminding the Jewish people of the great value of life sets them on course for the redemption, for the exodus, through the journey through the wilderness, and to establish societies of righteousness and respect for life in the future. Shabbat Shalom.